Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're cutting straight to a really stressful situation for a lot of federal workers.
Absolutely.
We're looking at the immediate threat a government shutdown poses to your federal workers' compensation claims, the OWCP or FECA system.
Right. And while, the headlines might focus on missed paychecks for everyone, if you're an injured federal employee, this is much deeper. It's about navigating this incredibly complex legal and medical system that's suddenly, running on fumes.
Running on fumes is a good way to put it.
Yeah, so our goal today, our mission, is really to cut through some of that bureaucratic fog. We want to give you the immediate do's and don'ts you absolutely need to know right now.
To protect your rights, basically.
Exactly. How to secure medical care, protect your financial rights, and just stop your claim from getting completely derailed because of a budget fight happening miles away in Washington.
And the scale we're talking about here is it's huge. This shutdown, it's because of a budget standoff in Congress, right?
That's the trigger, yes.
And it means something like, 750,000 federal employees are either furloughed, sent home without pay, or they're deemed essential and forced to work. Still without pay for now.
It's an incredible number. And that disruption, that impact, it's really uneven across different government agencies. That's really key to understanding the bottleneck we're seeing, especially for OWCP claims.
Okay, let's focus on that. The bottleneck. What do you mean by uneven?
Well, look at the difference. You've got the VA, Veterans Affairs. They're reportedly nearly 97% operational, still running almost normally.
Okay.
DHS, Homeland Security, also has most of its people working because they're considered essential. But, and this is the big but for our listeners, if your claim goes through OWCP, that's under the Department of Labor, the DOL.
And they're hit hard.
Among the hardest hit. Sources are indicating something like 76% of DOL staff are furloughed during this shutdown.
76%. Wow, let's just pause on that for a second. If you're trying to get answers about a potentially life-altering injury, the main office that approves your claim, pays your benefits, it's running with maybe only a quarter of its normal staff.
That's the reality. Just imagine, like you said, calling your credit card company and finding out 3/4 of their support staff are just gone. That's the kind of potential chaos we're talking about when trying to get answers or action from OWCP right now.
So that staffing difference, that 76% hole, obviously slows things down. But you said not everything stops.
Exactly right. It slows things dramatically, but certain core things do continue. It's a critical distinction we need to make really clear.
Okay, so what is OWCP absolutely required to keep doing, even with such a skeleton crew? 24% capacity sounds like total crisis mode.
It is crisis mode, but based on the DOL's own contingency plans, they have to keep the absolute core functions going, the things deemed essential lifeline expenditures.
Lifeline expenditures, like what specifically?
Okay, so that includes processing new injury claims, basically, taking them in the initial intake and some very basic adjudication.
Okay.
Authorizing necessary medical care for injured workers. That has to continue. And maybe most importantly for many, they will still issue those regular biweekly wage loss compensation payments.
So if you're already approved and getting checked.
If you're already approved, already receiving those wage loss payments, or if you have approved medical bills, those should continue. Now, expect delays maybe, but the plan is to keep those payments flowing.
Okay, that's some relief. But let's flip that. Where does this really start to bite? What crucial things are just completely stopped?
Yeah, this is where you really see the human costs stack up.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one, clearly stated in the contingency plans, is the adjudication and payment of schedule awards. That's on a definitive hold.
Schedule awards. Explain that quickly.
All right, so wage loss is about replacing your lost salary week to week. A schedule award is different. It's a payment for permanent impairment to a body part, like, say, loss of function in your arm after that break we mentioned earlier. It's often a lump sum or paid over a set period.
And those are stopped. Why them specifically?
Because processing them isn't seen as an immediate lifeline expenditure like wage loss. They often involve, significant sums of money, require careful, detailed review by specialized staff to check impairment ratings against the AMA guides.
The medical guidelines.
Exactly. And that takes time and manpower that a skeleton crew just doesn't have. They prioritize keeping the weekly checks going over processing these, let's call them more complex, non-urgent payments.
So if someone, maybe they were planning to use that schedule award money to, transition out of federal service or pay for retraining or handle a major medical expense not covered otherwise, that money's just vanished, stuck in limbo.
Precisely. It's vanished into a kind of bureaucratic black hole until Congress gets the funding turned back on and OWCP can staff back up.
Yeah.
For someone really relying on that specific payment, yeah, it can completely derail their plans.
Any other major things paused?
Yeah. Other things like processing overpayments, trying to collect money. OWCP thinks it overpaid you, that stopped. Also, those periodic reviews they do for long-term cases to see if you're still entitled, those are likely paused too. Essentially, it boils down to day-to-day claims maintenance only. Anything requiring deeper work is probably on the back burner.
Okay, that brings up a really critical question then. Let's imagine someone, let's call her Sarah again, a federal employee. She slips at work today during the shutdown, breaks her arm badly. Should she wait? Should she hold off filing until the government reopens?
No, absolutely not. That's probably the single most important piece of advice. Sarah must file her claim immediately, use the CA1 form for a traumatic injury like that, or a CA2 for an occupational disease.
Why the urgency if things are so backed up?
Because the shutdown does not pause the legal deadlines. This is crucial. For a traumatic injury, like Sarah's broken arm, she still needs to file that CA1 within 30 days of the injury.
30 days.
30 days. To secure her right to what's called continuation of pay, or COP. That's 45 days of her regular pay, paid by her agency, not OWCP, while the claim is initially processed.
And if she misses that 30-day window...
She loses COP entirely. 45 days of paid time off, gone. And the shutdown is almost certainly not going to be accepted as a valid excuse for missing that deadline. You just can't risk it.
Wow. Okay, so file immediately no matter what, but how? What if Sarah's supervisor, the person who usually handles this at her agency, is furloughed?
Great question. The fastest and, frankly, the most recommended way even normally is the online portal, eComp.
Econ, is that still running?
Yes, eComp is up and running. The claim examiners in OWCP who do the initial intake of new injuries, they're generally considered essential staff, so they are logging those new injuries coming in through eComp. The system itself works.
So even if her agency side is slow or unresponsive, getting it into eComp establishes the filing date.
Exactly. It timestamps your claim, protects that COP deadline. Now, there's one exception to note. The U.S. Postal Service. USPS runs on its own revenue, mostly.
Right, they're different.
So postal supervisors and their injury comp offices should, in theory, still be working and processing their part of the claim normally. But for almost every other agency where supervisors might be furloughed, just file via eComp anyway. Get it logged.
Okay, eComp is the way to file. What about communication? If Sarah has questions, needs to send in medical documents, I imagine picking up the phone is useless right now.
You're almost certainly going to struggle, yeah. Immensely. Trying to reach a live person at an OWCP district office, many of those customer service reps are furloughed. The phones might just ring unanswered or go to voicemail boxes that aren't being checked.
So what's the alternative?
OWCP themselves are advising that the best, fastest way to communicate is, again, through eComp. Use the electronic messaging feature within the system, upload your documents directly there, send your questions that way. It creates a digital record.
eComp again. So it's not just for filing, it's the main communication channel too.
It seems to be the only reliable lifeline right now for two-way communication and submitting things, and for just checking the status of your claim. Rely on the automated systems.
Automated systems?
Yeah, there's the Claim Inquiry System, CQS. It's basically the online tracking database for your claim file, and the automated telephone lines. If you have your claim number, you can usually call in and use the automated system to get basic status updates. Those should still be functional. Don't expect detailed answers, but basic steps, yes.
That's okay. File via eComp. Communicate via eComp. Check status via automated systems. Got it. Now let's talk about some of those processes that are getting delayed. Two critical ones come to mind. Medical exams and those schedule awards. What about second opinion exams? OWCP often sends people for those.
Right, the IME, or independent medical exam, sometimes called a second opinion exam. This is, well, it's a bit of gray area during a shutdown.
How so?
If an exam was already scheduled before the shutdown with an outside medical contractor, it might still take place.
Why might?
Because those contractors, they're not federal employees, and their billing systems with OWCP might still be functioning for pre-approved work. However, getting new referrals for second opinion exams scheduled and approved, that's almost certainly going to be delayed.
Because the OWCP staff needed to handle the paperwork, the authorization, the logistics. They're furloughed.
Precisely. There's just not enough staff to manage setting up new ones.
Yeah.
So the key advice here is, if you have an exam already scheduled, call the doctor's office and confirm it's still happening. Don't just assume.
And regardless.
Regardless, keep up with your own treating physician. Continue your treatment. Keep getting documentation. Don't let a potential delay in a second opinion exam disrupt the medical care you actually need. That's vital.
Okay, clear advice on exams. Now, back to the schedule awards, the permanent impairment payments that are definitely paused. If Sarah's broken arm heals, but leaves her with, say, permanent range of motion loss, and her doctor gives her an impairment rating, should she even bother filing the CA7 form for the award now? Why not just wait until the government reopens to save the hassle, maybe the cost of getting the rating done?
That's a really smart question, and it gets right to the frustration people feel. But here's the strategic reason to file it anyway. Submitting that impairment rating now, even knowing the payment is paused, gets your claim in the queue.
Ah, it's about getting in line.
Exactly. It ensures your claim is basically at the front of the line, or at least in the line, the moment OWCP resumes processing those awards. If you wait until the government reopens, you'll be filing behind potentially thousands of other claims that piled up during the shutdown. You'll be at the back of a very long queue.
So submitting now essentially buys you a better spot in the queue later. Makes sense.
It really does. And remember this, you won't lose the compensation itself. Any delayed schedule award, once it's finally approved, will be paid retroactively for the full amount you're entitled to. You lose the timing, not the money.
So the key is preparation. Use this downtime productively.
Yes. Use this time strategically, get that impairment rating done, but make sure it's done correctly.
What does correctly mean in this context?
It needs to be done by a qualified physician, usually someone like an orthopedic surgeon or a physiatrist, depending on the injury. And critically, it must use the methodology from the current edition of the AMA guides to the evaluation of permanent impairment.
The AMA guides, why is that specific book so important that it holds things up?
Because the FECA law mandates using the AMA guides. It's the standard OWCP uses to ensure ratings are consistent and fair across the entire country for all federal employees. But applying the guides correctly can be complex. It requires specific calculations, specific documentation.
And the OWCP staff who specialize in reviewing those calculations and ensuring the doctor followed the guides correctly.
They're the ones likely furloughed. That's the administrative bottleneck right there. The doctors can do the medical part, but the specialized OWCP adjudicators who audit and approve the rating itself aren't there in sufficient numbers.
So get the rating done now, make sure it meticulously follows the AMA guides, and also double-check one other thing.
Yes, crucially, verify that the specific medical condition causing the impairment is officially accepted by OWCP on your claim. They won't pay a schedule award for a condition they haven't formally accepted as work-related. Get all that paperwork perfect now.
Okay, so with OWCP staff down by, what, 76%, internal resources are just slammed. What about external help? Are there resources, maybe specialized support that can help people navigate this mess?
Yes, and this is where getting specialized help can be really vital, almost acting as your advocate when the system itself is partly shut down.
What kind of help are we talking about?
Well, think about it in a few stages. First, just expert documentation support. Help making sure you're even using the right form. Is it a CA1 or a CA2? Filling it out perfectly, avoiding common errors that cause delays later, and getting it submitted via eComp immediately to nail those deadlines. These specialists can act like your paperwork bodyguards.
Paperwork bodyguards, I like that.
Yeah.
So they're essentially stepping in to do the careful checking that maybe a furloughed agency supervisor or overwhelmed OWCP rep can't do right now.
That's a great way to think about it, yes. They're replacing some of that unavailable guidance and oversight. Then there's the liaison and case management piece.
Meaning
Someone who is constantly tracking the claim status using those automated systems, who can maybe coordinate with whatever contacts are available at the employing agency, who compiles all the necessary medical evidence OWCP needs. Basically, acting as your communication bridge and project manager when OWCP's own customer service is so limited, they become your advocate.
And what about the actual medical care itself? You mentioned authorizations might be slow too.
Right. So ideally, you want to be seeing doctors who are DOL credentialed, meaning they're familiar with OWCP processes. But more than that, doctors who are experts in the specific documentation OWCP requires. They know how to write reports that clearly link the injury to work, define your restrictions precisely, and justify the treatment needed in the way OWCP understands. That's critical for getting approvals, especially when things are slow.
And what if you need, say, urgent surgery and the OWCP approval is stuck because of the shutdown?
This is where experienced advocates or specialized clinics can really help. They might guide you on contingency solutions. For instance, potentially using your private federal health insurance, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, temporarily to get truly urgent care approved quickly.
Can you do that? Use private insurance for a work injury?
It's complicated, but sometimes yes, for urgent situations, with the understanding that OWCP is ultimately responsible. Then the specialist helps manage the process of getting OWCP to reimburse the private insurance or cover costs later, once the approval eventually comes through. It's about finding those workarounds during the crisis. They provide those vital contingency plans.
Okay, so the shutdown is definitely chaos, it sounds like. But you're saying the underlying rights, the FECA rights, they're still there. They're like an insurance policy.
They really are. That's the critical message we need to leave people with. Don't let the shutdown chaos cause paralysis. Filing your claim immediately, correctly, using e-comp that secures your rights.
And those rights last.
They absolutely do. Remember, once OWCP formally accepts your claim, that specific work-related injury is essentially covered for life. The Department of Labor remains responsible for the necessary medical care and any related compensation for that accepted condition, even if you leave federal service 5, 10, 20 years down the road.
That's a powerful protection.
It is, but delaying filing now, that risks losing immediate benefits like comp, and it could potentially jeopardize your future financial security if your injury worsens later or your job status changes. You have to act now and use this strange downtime strategically.
So final thought then. In these really uncertain times, having that accepted OWCP claim is like having permanent financial and medical protection for that specific injury, protection that doesn't expire. The challenge for you, the listener, is this. What steps can you take today, right now, to make sure your injury file is 100% complete? Forms filed, medical evidence gathered, impairment ratings secured if applicable. Get everything ready so you are poised for action the very moment the government fully reopens. That's the proactive step to take away from this deep dive.